Hey everybody, it's Damin here from the Break It Down show doing today's intro. While my buddy Pete is riding across the states, recording with exciting guests, we, the Macedonian Mafia, gotta continue growing and producing your new favorite show. Today's guest is comedian Andrew Norelli, and these are actually one of my favorite shows to produce because I simply love comedy, and this guy, he had numerous late night appearances, including twice on the Late Show with David Letterman, the Late Show with Craig Ferguson, and Jimmy Kimmel Live. Also, he had an appearance on Just for Laughs Comedy Festival in Montreal. I know that you're going to enjoy this one. You already know what to do. Ride for the brave. Go to savethebrave.org and support these fellas. We fight together PTSD. You wanna support our show? Go to the PayPal link, put a little money in it, and all the money goes straight back to the show. Check out our website, breakitdownshow.com, where you can find our merch or simply subscribe. Find us on YouTube, probably the best place to listen and watch us there. Alright, enough of me. Here comes Andrew Norelli.
Lions Rock Productions.
This is Jay
This
Moore.
is Greg Proops.
This is Jordan Harbinger.
This is Dexter from The Offspring.
This is Nathan
This is
East.
Sebastian Younger.
This is Rick
This
Marotta.
is Stuart Copeland.
This is Mick Gillette.
This is Andy Summers.
Hey, this is Skunk Baxter.
This is Gabby Reese.
This is Rob Bell.
Hey, this is John Leon Guerrero.
Hey, and this is Pete A. Turner.
This is Andrew Norelli, and you're watching The Rick and Down Show.
And now, The Break It Down Show with John Leon Guerrero and Pete A. Turner.
The reason why we do these shows, especially on these Fridays, is that we like to support Save the Brave. That's my charity. Matt is involved with the charity as well. And we're working on getting Bastards Canteen and Temecula open. Hopefully, now that COVID is kind of easing up on us, we'll be able to get them through the approval process. And then we're going to open up a live performance space to support, among other things, Save the Brave. So we're going to be doing some charity, comedy and music events, and that's why we do these things. Matt and I have been doing them. Gosh, Matt, for I don't know, it must be like 6 months now that we've been doing these things.
Yeah,
Nice.
we're gonna pack the place.
Okay.
And I'm gonna have a beer because it's Friday.
Okay. I'm going to have some ginger tea. Is that all right?
I'm gonna have
Yeah,
some
that's how you do
water.
it. That's how you do it.
I'm just kidding. I'm just having water. Yeah.
Is there echinacea in your tea, Andrew?
Oh, yeah. I sprinkle chia seeds on top of it. Yeah, I put some warm lemon and honey. No, I have some bottled water. Yeah. That's about as bougie as I get.
That's bougie enough for us.
Yeah. You a Dodgers fan, Pete?
Yeah, I am. I'm a baseball fan in general, but I needed a new hat. The Dodgers won, and I thought I would support them with some money. You know,
So, I'll pick the world champs. I'll get that on my head.
I've
So good choice.
followed the Dodgers for a long time. I mean, I'm not bandwagon.
Well,
I probably wouldn't have bought any other team other than the A's for a hat. You know, but I like all baseball.
how do you feel that they are the Yankees of the modern era? I mean, they're just unbeatable.
Yeah, I think that they are built brilliantly. I think that's what makes me able to really enjoy them. They don't go out and sign bad contracts for the most part, and they focus on player development as their main thing to either acquire talent that they need or bring up their own young guys. So they've got a bunch of guys who are going to graduate to free agency, and they're going to let them go because they've got good folks behind them, and
yeah,
they're good at that. And that's different.
I like that. That's a friendly spin on a team renting piles of money.
Well, they spend a lot of money, but they spend it on player development. They spend it on training. They spend it on tons of sabermetrics. I mean, they bring that sabermetric analysis right down to the field to I mean, these guys focus on how you throw the baseball specifically and where the tail drag will be to give you more impact. Right. And so their ability, their analysis sets them way far ahead of. They set the standard for that, and that's really where their money goes.
I think it's interesting that sabermetrics still seems to focus heavily on the regular season, and I don't know why it's not more heavily favored on the postseason, which is why you seem to get a lot of hitters that have this high OPS, but then they get to the postseason, they strike out a lot, or they don't hit good pitching well.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, when you're the Dodgers, you have so many great players. It doesn't really matter because you have 3-4 guys in the lineup that go cold. It doesn't matter because you have another 3-4 guys that are going to be hot or that are going to be able to hit any pitching. When do you think that will change?
I think sabermetrics so. First off, in the playoffs, the randomness of everything is really hard to overcome. I mean, you look at the Dodgers themselves; they had an absolute freak show play cost them a game, and then they had a couple of robbed home runs where maybe 5 players in baseball could make those plays, and they happened to make them this time. So they easily could have been the Dodgers get eliminated too. The margin of error is just so small. And the pitching is better. And you know, that staff that you need for 162 games, you don't need as many arms, so you can be a lot choosier and set up specific matchups. And I think that's where the Dodgers have an advantage with sabermetrics, is that they can take advantage more often than other teams because they have such depth. But that's not a guarantee. I mean, about half of the time a wild card team wins the World Series. So there you go. You know, like when the Giants won all 3 years, this is not a knock on the Giants. It's to their credit. They were never the best team, but they ended up winning the last game, which makes them the best team. So I think the playoffs are just weird.
Right.
Kind of sounds like a knock. Kind of sounds a little knock.
Yeah, you're
no. I think the Giants are great. No knock at all. No whatsoever.
The Giants won miraculously with their mediocre team every year that they won.
No. I'm not
inferior.
They get there, and you know they are a good team, but they played, like, how many elimination games did they win? Teams that play elimination games are often eliminated. They just refuse to lose. They were incredible, but that's not something that you can attribute to the overall depth and quality of the team. It's something else that they caught either. I mean, you know, Justin Verlander is not supposed to give 3 home runs up to Panda, but he did because Panda's great. But the next series, Panda could be like, not here. You know, you just don't know.
Interesting run. You're right. I think it had to do with what I was referring to. They had a bunch of players that actually knew how to make contact when they needed to and perform situational hitting.
Yeah.
And that's what sabermetrics seems to overlook a lot. And I don't know why. And then, of course, they had, you know, some of the best postseason pitchers of all time, which I think sabermetrics is a little better at predicting that and monitoring that, you know, or controlling for those variables. It's the hitting that it seems to miss a lot.
Yeah, it's a little hard to measure someone who plays exceptionally well in the postseason. You know, like, you're like, what is your level of play? Like Big Papi is ridiculous. Like, if that guy's in the postseason, he's going to be dangerous. And he's he's already a Hall of Fame level player in the regular season. But then he's even better. Madison Bumgarner is not a Hall of Fame pitcher unless it's the playoffs and he goes on a run. And it is hard to capture that because, you know, is it that he gets better over the season as everybody else gets more tired and broken? Who knows? And then the next time he goes to the playoffs, he might stink. You know, like, it's just, you have no idea. It really, the playoffs are so hard to figure out.
But why can't you only measure your ability to hit good pitching, ignore mediocre and bad pitching, and then measure your ability to make contact when you have to make contact? Obviously, when nobody's on base and it's 6-0, a lot of those guys are going to swing for the fences, and that's fine.
Yeah.
I'm talking when you're down by 2 and you know you have to make contact. There's got to be like multiple ways of just carrying around that statistic. I would think that Big Papi probably always did well with that, even through the regular season, right? I bet you he didn't suddenly get better at that in the postseason.
Yeah, it's tough with someone like Big Papi. So we know through the math that clutch hitters don't really exist, you know, like as a normal thing. But then there's Big Papi with always numbers that are higher in the clutch situation. So these guys do exist, but they're very rare. And you're talking about people making contact. It's not for a lack of desire or whatever. I mean, look, there are championship moments in every game, and you line up and like whoever wins that moment is one championship point, basically, right? And so you have things, but then there's also the random variables. I forget which game it was, which World Series it was for the Giants. And again, not at all a knock on the Giants, but a ball hits third base and caroms, you know, if that goes the other direction as a foul ball or, you know, whatever it is, it's some of these things are so meaningful in that moment.
Yeah, there's definitely some chance involved for sure.
Right. But you can't tell me that Marco Scutaro is a better player than Cody Bellinger in center field. Like, it's just not true. And so it doesn't matter if Marco gets a couple of scratch hits. I mean, it's like when the Yankees lost the World Series to the Diamondbacks. Mariano Rivera didn't give up any kind of solid contact. It was people mishit the ball and it fell in.
That was a weak winning hit. You're right. But that speaks to what I'm talking about, right? In that situation, that is the most important thing. You want to make contact, even if it's weak contact. And that's what happened in that final hit. And that's why they scored the run. If he had struck out there, that would have been the worst possible thing that you could have done.
Yeah. Or if he had mishit the ball 20 feet in the other direction, which he can't control, then it goes right into someone's glove. Like a lot of this stuff. That's the thing about sabermetrics, is that it helps you wash out a lot of the luck. And it makes it easier to see, like, this hitter is exceptionally lucky this year, and we expect him to it's all about regression to the mean, I think, is the best way to put it. And someone like Marcus Gutaro has a long major league career, but he's always going to be just above average as a player. But in these 21 games, watch out, I mean, and then there's some hand-eye coordination stuff. There's some hitters that are like, I swing at anything. Vladimir Guerrero went to Hall of Fame having incredible hand-eye coordination. I mean, he hit a home run off a ball that bounced on the way to the plate.
That was amazing.
Yeah, and there's guys like that. Randall Simon was a guy like that. He could just swing and hit the ball, and he was just good enough for just long enough,
I think the Yankees prove that, once again, you have to control for how the hitters are going to hit in the postseason, right? Because their best postseason hitter has been DJ LeMahieu, because he's the one that will make contact when he needs to make contact. He can hit all pitching. He can hit to all fields. He can hit in all situations. And a lot of their other hitters, we know they sort of knock the ball out of the park when it's not really meaningful.
Yeah, there's a lot of that.
There has to be ways to control for that statistically better, or that people need to pay attention to those statistics more, because we know those statistics are out there. It's obviously not. These aren't hidden statistics.
But like that game that the Rays won against the Dodgers in the World Series, I think it was Game 4 that they won on that fluke play. Right. There's no stat that can predict that. I mean, there's a guy that hasn't batted in 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. He makes contact. Is that a skill or was that an accident? I don't know. Did the pitcher get the outcome they wanted? Yes. But then the hilarity ensued, and all of a sudden the game was over. And one of the things that teams like the Dodgers and the Rays do, though, is that they have, I guess you call it like a fielding glove, where the defense is positioned in a way to create the most possibilities for outs. And if they can position their person where, like, the ball goes at an unexpected angle, but they're sitting right there and they don't move an inch because they've scouted it well, that's hard to beat. And then there's a thing like framing for catchers, where they're using the glove to steal strikes. Mm-hmm. If you can steal 10 strikes a game, it doesn't matter how good the other team is. They just have a smaller window for opportunity. Yeah. And I think that's the Dodgers and the Rays do that the best. They take the most advantages, the most times, and it's like Bill Parcells, right? His teams weren't incredible, but they would have the ball for 37 minutes a game. And if you could beat them in the other 23 minutes in the game, then God bless, But that's sort of what the Dodgers do. They just choke the life out of the game for the other team. And it's baseball, so you're going to lose 40% of the time no matter what you do.
Yeah, I think that the same thing is happening with basketball, with the three-pointers, right? There's sort of all these these advanced statistics about three-pointer, but they always overlook what's going to happen in the postseason. Yeah. In the postseason, we know that the three-pointer is going to be defended more aggressively. It's going to be harder to make the three-pointer. Right. And there's going to be all sorts of other variables, such as who is guarding you. Not only you being more aggressively guarded, but who is guarding you, right? Because if Paul George is guarding you, you're probably not going to make as many three-pointers.
Right.
So why is that not being taken into account, is my point, in the postseason strategy.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
we got to hire you as an NBA and MLB GM, Andrew. Can we make this happen?
Oh, yeah.
I want you to be the Bo Jackson of sports, front offices.
I work for higher salaries than that, so I'm going to pass on that.
Are you at the Nugget? It looks like you're in Vegas. Can you?
What are
you doing there?
Yeah, I'm at the MGM. Yeah.
My favorite hang in Vegas, I used to live in Vegas, is the Pepper Mill. I just love the 1975 prom feel of the whole thing.
Okay, where'd you live in Vegas?
I lived by Trop and Pecos, right by Slappy White's house. He was not my neighbor, but he was in my neighborhood, like maybe like a minute away.
Okay, and is that why you know so much about sports? Were you in the sports gambling game?
No. I was athletic growing up, and so I just know a lot about that. I was actually going to ask you. People are talking about LeBron James being the GOAT. Like there's certain GOATs we know. Tom Brady's the best quarterback, maybe the best football player of all time now.
Right.
It's hard to argue with that.
He's the winningest, but I don't think anybody
He's
thinks
the winningest.
he's the best,
Yeah.
right?
I mean, if the bet was you get shot in the head if your team loses and you want to win, you start with Tom Brady being quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting debate because I think that it's undervalued the qualities of leadership and playing under pressure and playing well when you need to play well, which sometimes can only be 3 or 4 plays in a game.
Sure. Yeah.
Tom Brady has that so much. I'm willing to give him extra credit for that. And I think that LeBron James, we're starting to realize over time, LeBron James has that. And those qualities are really, really of high value. So that it doesn't really matter if Anthony Davis is actually more athletic than LeBron right now or Kawhi Leonard. That doesn't make them actually a better player because their basketball IQ doesn't seem to be as high as LeBron's, and they don't seem to be as good of leaders. And you need that. You have to have somebody that's actually sort of your on the court coach. And anyway, I think Tom Brady.
Is he better than Jordan? That's the real. I mean, Kawhi Leonard's great.
Well, he never will be because of that one series, right? Because of this series, he was supposed to win against Dallas, and he didn't win. That he'll never get over that blemish because Jordan never had that blemish, right? At least
you also
Jordan
never saw Jordan quit on the court because he's done in other series too, like against the Warriors, he quit.
Yeah, I mean, you could argue that, although you could argue that was irrelevant, but. Yeah, you're right. Jordan didn't seem to do that, although Jordan did actually quit twice. Jordan actually quit the sport altogether.
Didn't play for
he all the way quit. Yeah,
I would not say that's. I would say that's a blemish, but he never had that on court blemish. So LeBron, I don't think there's anything he could do. He would literally have to win three in a row so that he passed Jordan, and he would have to be the best player on the court, winning those 3. And at 36. I just don't know how that would be possible, right? Because I think that he'll probably have maybe one more year like this year at this level, but I just don't know how it would go beyond that. And I don't think it's a surprise that he's still this good at 36. People keep acting like 36 is ancient. There's been other players that are really, really excellent at 36. There's been others that would have been, probably barring injury.
Yeah.
Right. And I don't believe in the theory of how many miles are on your body. I think that's irrelevant because you're basically telling me that when LeBron was 21, where he's accumulating wear and tear. I don't think
what
that's
about tread on the tire, Andrew. Tread, does that matter?
What's that?
Tread on the tire. Doesn't that play a factor? He doesn't have as much tread as he did 15 years ago.
Well, I mean, that's the thing is like I don't know why we're accumulating the wear and tear early in these people's career. You know what I mean? Like that would be like saying, oh, I played basketball so much at 13 and 14. I'm actually going to start to decline earlier. I'm going to decline at 30 because I've been playing so much. That's not really how the human body works, right? So I think it's more about your age and not about how many minutes you've played. Minutes played, I think, only is a factor if you keep getting injured.
Yeah, your knees don't remember what you did.
Yeah. What's that?
Your knees don't remember what you did 3-4 years ago.
That's what I think. That's exactly what I think. I think your body knows the age you are because we know your body starts to break down. No matter what you've done in your life, your body's going to start to slow down in your 30s, and then in your 40s, it's going to get very slow. And then in your 50s, you're going to have all kinds of problems. That's just the way it is, no matter how athletic or unathletic you were, right?
I think about LeBron, and I think LeBron is, an incredible player. I do not think he's the GOAT because I think Michael was the GOAT because Michael did quit the sport a couple of times, but if he was on the court, he was going to try to beat you, or score 60 losing. I think if you put Rodman on LeBron in any given game, Rodman would win that battle mentally most of the time.
That's an interesting statement. That's explosive. That's
I don't know who that person would be.
That's a Pete hot take.
Yeah, I don't think Jordan had a peer like that you could find anywhere where like that person's going to give, because it's not about physicality with Robin. He's as physical as anybody, but he's going to break you. Remember when he made who did he make? Who didn't he make go crazy? But the mailman. He broke the mailman's brain,
Right.
took him completely out of the series.
But
In the championships. I mean, that's huge.
You're forgetting how many people have actually tried to do that to LeBron, though, and they haven't been able to do it. He actually is a really cool head.
Mhm.
He actually doesn't really get ruffled. Remember Lance Stevenson used to try to harass him and get in his head. He's had all kinds of guys try to play the mental game with him. He's had a lot of players play rough with him. It does not seem to affect his stability or his ability to
That's
speak.
fair. That's fair.
Yeah.
All right, so Pete and Andrew, if you had a 10-year span from either Jordan or LeBron, and you're building a team around that, so you can pick 10 years, which player are you taking and why? Go.
Go ahead, Andrew.
I mean, I think that based on what Pete already said, Jordan appears to be the one that is just a touch more reliable, just a touch. But man, it's neck and neck. I think it would be interesting if they had switched teams. Like, don't you think LeBron would have been 6-0 in the finals had he been on all those Bulls teams instead of Jordan? The question is, would Jordan have won the championships LeBron won if he was on those teams? I think everybody thinks he would have won the Dallas matchup, but would he have beat the Warriors that year?
I don't think so. I don't
Really?
I can't prove it. I don't think
Why
he
not?
would have.
Why
Because
not?
I think the competition, like that 20 was at 16 Warriors team, was way better, in my opinion, than anyone Jordan played. And I don't think it's particularly close. Like
Well,
that was
what would Jordan have not done that LeBron did that year?
he would not have been 6'9".
Yeah.
And I think that matters. I don't think Jordan can pass like LeBron can. I don't know if he would have that chase down block. I mean, he was a hell of a defender.
That's for sure. I
don't
agree
know.
with you there about the
He's
chase
kind of
down.
like LeBron's basically Karl Malone's body
Right.
with Jordan's athleticism, or maybe higher. And I mean he's one of the smartest players
And
to ever
his
play.
basketball IQ is off the charts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think there's definitely a lot of stuff LeBron has done that Jordan couldn't do. And I mean, this is a fun hypothetical, but I mean, I think Jordan had a killer mentality earlier and kind of willed players, but I don't know if he could have left teams like LeBron did. I mean, you saw what happened in Washington. I mean, that's not a fair comparison, but like the Wizards didn't do anything.
Right. But I think we could take that out of the equation because we know
I'm
that
talking
he's
10 years. Yeah.
well past his prime. Yeah.
You probably wouldn't pick the Wizards years in this scenario.
Because I don't think anybody thinks that LeBron will be as elite as he is now at 38. I mean, anything's possible, but I have no idea how that would happen. I just think that if he's surrounded by great players, he can still be very useful because of what we talked about. Like basketball IQ and passing, that doesn't age. That's not the part that ages. It's your speed and athleticism and your stamina. Those are the things that are going to wilt, right? But I like that you made that claim that LeBron would not have won that. I think nobody says that, and it's a good talking point.
I mean, it was pretty close that LeBron even won it. I mean, it was Kyrie's shot that put him over with like a minute left, and so it was very likely that Golden State would have won that.
Well, and then we have to always remember too that wasn't really Golden State's full team, right? They had injury and suspension actually sort of weakened the team. And you could argue that
Kevin Durant wasn't on it, so they had to suffer on a 73-win team. So that was
yeah.
They only had 3 Hall of Famers or 4. I couldn't tell.
Right, yeah. They were severely handicapped.
And Cleveland had Matthew Dellavedova, who was balling. So they kind of tipped it.
Where is he playing now? How come there's not a constant where is Matthew Dellavedova?
I think he's in Australia.
That needs to be like an Instagram. There needs to be a page of where is Dellavedova every season.
We got to do that, Andrew. And I think another thing in LeBron's credit is he gets people like Delly paid.
Yeah.
I mean, he got a pretty fat contract, and Tristan Thompson, like J.R. Smith, like Kevin Love got. I mean, you can go on and on about people that LeBron got paid. I'm sure Jordan did too, but I don't know if it's the same.
And that's That's what I'm saying is an undervalued trait in LeBron. He makes other players better. And there's great players we know that don't do that. I don't think Kyrie Irving does that, does he? Does he make other players better? He doesn't seem to. He's great. That doesn't mean he's not great. But average players aren't going to become above average. Above average aren't going to become excellent. And in some ways you could argue some players maybe get worse with him because maybe they don't get along with him, or maybe they don't like his style of play because his style of play tends to be, give me the ball and just let me do something and you stand there.
Right.
That being said, what's that?
I think you could say, here's what I wanted to say about LeBron and Michael. If you were to line up any team anywhere, anytime, you had like 8 dudes, and it was Michael versus LeBron, I think LeBron wins more of those things because it matters less for him who's next to him because his talent to include the team more. Like it's newsworthy when Michael passes the ball to the shooter to win the game, right? It's not newsworthy at all with LeBron. However, if you were going to run a court and never ever leave, and Michael got to bring his team, no one's beating that team. No one's beating. I mean, Tony Kukoc is the fourth best player in that team. No one's beating that team.
Yeah,
no one's going to kick them off. And so there's and then Michael clearly is the best player, and then on the court has no peer. There is no person that shuts Michael down. I mean, you could try, but it ain't happening. So I think, is it a double GOAT? Is that what it is? Like any team, anywhere, any game, anytime, LeBron, but the best team, best player ever, it's Michael, maybe? I don't know.
Yeah, you might have a new take.
We're hitting the hard subjects here, the Break It Down show. LeBron James and Michael Jordan are good at basketball, people.
I want to add a Giants stuff. Barry Bonds.
And Tom Brady's good at football.
Yeah. Barry Bonds made everybody in the Giants better when he was there. He made the entire lineup better. Like a misconception about baseball is that a player like Barry Bonds or Sammy Sosa needs protection in the lineup. They are the protection. If you don't pitch to Benito Santiago and have to face Barry or Kurt Manwaring 4 batters later, you're like, damn it, I can't get anybody out. Here comes Kurt Manwaring just, hitting a base hit or whatever. You are always aware of Barry's presence throughout that lineup because he was so good. And there are very few players like that. That's what makes him special, is that he makes the entire lineup more stress-filled.
Do you think that Barry should be dinged for doing steroids during a time when half or more than half were doing it?
No.
Okay.
It wasn't illegal when he did it. And then you can put a dead person's body parts in your body. You can drill holes in your bones to create growth. You can do so many things. You can withdraw your blood, put it into a machine, spin it around, have things that are all natural put into it, put back into your body. What isn't performance enhancing if those things aren't? Or what is performance enhancing?
Well, I think it's pretty easy to measure. I think when your testosterone is triple the amount it's supposed to be, and we know that that's a hormone that actually makes you stronger and faster and quicker, right? That is clearly performance enhancing. A lot of this other stuff is smoke and mirrors. I mean, remember when Ray Lewis was spraying the deer antler spray in his mouth? I don't think anybody thought that actually did anything.
Or those copper necklaces.
Right. Like, all this stuff is completely, take 38 of these gel supplements that have creatine. And I don't think anybody thinks that actually does anything, because when you measure your hormones after taking that, I don't think they alter the levels that are important, such as your growth hormone or your testosterone.
So you can swap ligaments around and tendons and whatnot, take out a rib, take a rib out of your body, have thoracic outlet surgery. That's not performance enhancing.
I don't think so, because I don't think it makes you bigger, stronger, or faster. And I think
if you don't have an ulnar collateral ligament anymore, that makes you not throw so good.
Pete, I think it's not so much are they enhancing, like exercising and sleeping well will enhance your performance. I think the issue is the detrimental part. And because steroids have a known bad, Andrew can speak to this a lot better than me, but it becomes a challenge of who can harm their body more to some extent. And I think that's what the regulators of MLB or other professional sports dislike. It's not that it makes you better, it's that it makes you better and it hurts you in a way that creates this strange competition over who can create the most self-harm.
Right. It's like an arms race to see who can be the most dangerous. with their improvement. Yeah.
Should there be an unlimited class then for sports where like you can do whatever science can do? You want to add a third arm, you can do it in this league. You can call it a dick, you can call it a leather glove. We don't care. You can do whatever you want in this league. It's unlimited class.
I don't think so, because I wouldn't want to see that. I don't want to see who has the best science. I want to see who is the best athlete and who trains the hardest. You know,
with race car driving, it is a battle of science too. I mean, that's why F1 or NASCAR is a big deal, because they want to see the engineering.
Yeah, I just think that it's interesting. You know, that like Barry Bonds, for example, we know obviously he was already a Hall of Famer before steroids. And we know that while on steroids, he was basically Babe Ruth. And so I believe he should be in the Hall of Fame because he already was better than most players anyway.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's as simple as saying, hey, everybody was doing steroids and he was, you know, so he was doing them too. Because we know that everybody wasn't doing them, right? We know that it was probably more like half, right?
Well, what about the year that Floyd Landis won the Tour de France? No one wins that year, right? They just said, fuck it, you guys all cheated, nobody wins.
Right.
I think that's true. One of those years, maybe it's one of the years that Lance won, but they're like, you know what?
Always get stripped when they find out that they cheated. Yeah, they strip them of their titles, right?
Yeah. And they're like, the guy who was in 27th place, we think he was clean.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know what to do about that. I mean, I understand the outcry and the upset, but we haven't ever actually measured what it equals to, you know. So Barry Bonds was the best hitter of his era for sure. Mm-hmm. And then he adds the extra strength and the ability to heal, which is an important thing.
That's another one. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. And so did he add 20 home runs to his career or 200? We never study it, you know, like if he's 10% better. So he hits, instead of hitting 73 home runs, he hits, I don't know, 65 or whatever it's going to be.
Right. But we can't
really fucking good.
We can sort of measure it though, because he was hitting, you know, 30 to 40, and then he was hitting. I mean, he hit 73. But when you do the numbers, there was one year where people were estimating he could have hit 100 if they had actually pitched to him. Because remember, he was getting 200 walks or whatever. So we actually can measure it. He basically was, you know, twice as good in the home run department. Or, you know, 1.5 times as good. I just think, you know, I don't know. I think that it's interesting, these ethical debates, because in the past we know that players used amphetamines, and you have to argue that is performance enhancing, because again, that at the very least, that's got to make you stronger and faster because you're less tired, right? So how do we reconcile that? Is that okay because probably everybody was doing it? Is that okay because the difference that made was probably minuscule?
Yeah.
Right? Doesn't matter how much you do. Because I think that's another argument against Bonds, is like, he probably just did more steroids.
He did the most steroids, yeah.
And so it's like he's the most egregious. And or Mark McGwire or Sosa. It's like, if you're going to go that far, we're not going to pretend we can't tell.
Right.
And actually, South Park was the first on this. They called them out, I think, years before it was actually learned. So good job, South Park.
Right.
Shouts to you.
Yes. Yeah, and I guess you could also
Trey Parker and Matt Stone listen to this show, right?
They will now.
I think they will,
yeah.
The other thing, too, is like when you look at the science part of it, I mean, and you do look at the Dodgers, they've got folks at UC Irvine studying. They found a new force that affects the baseball. So we've learned about the Magnus effect. But now there's another force, and they're like ahead of everybody in the market on that. I mean, that's performance enhancing. If they're like, if we can put this sticky stuff on the ball and get this amount of spin, position our fingers in this part of the ball will move in this unpredictable way for hitters. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, like, again, you look at what's performance enhancing, and I think it's really hard. I just say go unlimited class. Whatever gender you want to be, you want to attach a robot to your leg, whatever it is, go crazy. Just don't beat your wife.
Yeah, that'd be great for like a season until there's 3 deaths, and then that would end.
And then it's just gladiatorial baseball.
What do you think about the proposal that maybe there's, and I've always said this, I've been saying this for years, not because I'm some visionary. I'm sure a lot of people were already thinking this or saying it out loud. A limited number of throwovers to first base to hold a man on, so that there's not the constant slowing down of the game, and so that a stolen base is more interesting because it's more possible. Right? Because once you throw over a couple times, if that's the limit, then that runner's probably going to go, and you're going to have to just throw him out.
There's actually a story about that. Andrew, Theo Epstein is working on this with baseball. And so they're going to use the minor leagues for some of these things. In the independent leagues last year, they messed around with pass balls. The batter could run and steal first. There's things like this that they're working on. Another one was limiting the number of throws over. And also, like the way the balk rule is written, you can't look at like home and then flip the ball over, but you can look at the batter and like pause. You're not allowed to deceive the runner on purpose.
Right.
And yet that's what these things are. So call the balk move, not as it's written, but with the intention. You can't just zip the ball over there and surprise them. So now they're making a rule where you have to step off the rubber to throw over to first, which would require an extra move. And Ricky Henderson plans on making the comeback and stealing 25 more bases at 65 years old.
I bet. And what would happen if you threw over to the base your maximum number of times and you knew the runner was going to go? How does that work? When can the runner run?
Yeah.
Does it mean that if the runner runs before you pitched, you're allowed to throw to second? Is that what that means? You just can't throw first?
Right.
Or did they not say?
Well, and then what's the counter to that? Like, that the runner's going now because you're thrown over 3 times. And so instead of doing a pitch out, you do a pitch forward. And so the catcher jumps up, runs towards the pitcher, catches the ball, and is already 10 feet closer.
Right, exactly. Yeah, they're going to have to probably work that out. But I think it's exciting because I think it's obviously a lost art form, the stolen base, and it is really exciting. And there's so many players in the league that are blazing fast, right? Yeah, and they just never get to steal because it's bad. It's bad sabermetrics.
It is bad. It's not worth the risk right now, right? You have to be safe so often that you're better off just letting the batter bat. Yeah.
Right.
Which takes something out of the game because there's some excitement. I mean, you guys remember Ricky Henderson and how distracting he was to any pitcher.
So exciting. Remember Vince Coleman? That was just as interesting.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Another thing to speed the game up, I brought this up. I had Rob Nair on the show, and I said this parade with pitchers, relief pitchers. If you're bringing a pitcher in, I don't mind them having a couple tosses to get warmed up. I'm not saying that, but why are they coming all the way from the bullpen? Like, are you ready? Get into the dugout, and then when I go out there, I'm not going to look back and be like, "Hey, Ricky, come on in." Bring him out there with you.
We have an area for you that's very comfortable here.
Right.
Bench and some water. Come on in. Yeah.
Sunflower seeds.
Right.
Some bubble gum. Yeah.
But what about Trevor Hoffman coming into it Thunderstruck?
Yeah. It is all that drama to see them run in, though. Come on.
You can still play it. Cue up. You look at the DJ. You text him. Play Thunderstruck. Here comes Matt Hoffman. Or whatever. And he walks in. Trevor Hoffman. Yeah, we could do that. You could bring Matt Hoffman into it. He could do a wheelie or something to entertain. But
I always thought baseball would be incredible if there were only 2 outfielders. Wouldn't that be exciting?
Yeah.
We would have so many diving for fly balls. That'll never happen. I'm not proposing this. I just think that would be so incredibly exciting because it's such a letdown when somebody hits like a smoking line drive and an outfielder only has to go 12 feet to catch it. It would be so much more exciting if they had to run full speed to try to catch that smoking line drive.
What if you measured the outfielder on the amount of steps they don't take? Mm-hmm. Like if the ball's hit 500 feet, you should just never move an inch. And then you get like a portion of a run for that,
Okay.
Or
good decision making. Okay.
So you're trying to take the least amount of steps. If the ball's in the gap, you're like 1, 2, 3, 4, fuck it. Let it go. Let me get the ball and then throw it back in. Because you don't want to take 100 steps or something,
Yeah.
Like there's a penalty for running too far.
I think there's a lot that can be done. And I love when sports constantly evolve. And I think that's the problem with something like soccer. And the reason that soccer probably will never take off in America is soccer appears to be stubborn, right? And they don't want to make the goal bigger or eliminate offsides, which would probably engage American audiences, because then you'd have games that are 5-4 or 6-2 or something, right? Not 1-0. And I get it. Soccer's probably like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. You know what I mean? And soccer's doing fine. We don't care if you don't like it or not. But I would like to see soccer if they had that kind of setup.
Why does soccer in America just do that? Like Canadian rules football is outrageous. It's fun to watch. Australian football, outrageous, fun to watch. They have their own rules, and then just play under whichever host country's rules.
We had indoor soccer. That was fun.
Yeah.
Well, that's right. Yeah, but you're right. We could have an American rules soccer that just had that one change, just had a wider goal or no offsides. Or both.
2 balls on the field at all times.
Okay, now we're getting gimmicky. Okay.
Okay, how about during a penalty, instead of just kicking from 15 yards away, you have 2 balls for 5 minutes? You know, like hockey has the advantage of one less player. We'll just do more balls.
Okay. You're like, why don't we combine dodgeball and soccer? And you can throw it.
You can use your hands.
Catch it, or they're out.
Give them a bat.
Yeah.
One thing I don't like about sports in general are timed sports when you're measuring things to 1,000th of a second or even 100th of a second, because there's no difference. That's the same. Like you're talking like Michael Phelps became the greatest Olympian of all time, and he won one race by that distance right there.
Right.
You know, like half of a fingernail.
Right.
Okay, you're going to swim across this pool. You got to deliver this cat. You got to bring a cat with you and put it on your back and swim. And that's a whole different thing. Or dragsters, you know, like you have to deliver this pie to this lady. Some other element to make it so that you're actually separating what good is from just like, these are basically, we need a computer to tell us who won.
Right. I thought you were going to maybe argue, because you probably have a point, that how do they know that that is actually the correct time when it's that tiny of a difference, right? How do they actually know that? Because I'm guessing there's a margin of error in those timers, right?
Right. Like on bobsled, it's always measured. Like there's a window that they all run in, and it's essentially the same. I mean, there's not much difference between first and fifth place, say. Right. So what are you really assessing? You know, someone's slightly more perfecter than the other person. What if you have to catch a ball as it comes down? And if you've got 3 balls in your thing, you get a time bonus or whatever it is, you know? Add some extra difficulty things so we're not measuring things to the 4th decimal point.
You have thought this through, Pete.
I have.
You've got some ideas.
Yeah.
This has been great. You guys are going to have your shows in Temecula, right? Is that where you're going to do your live show? And are you going to actually be there every weekend? Is that because you live near there, Pete?
No, it's so Save the Brave is run by a guy named Scott Husing who lives there, and then the other guy is there's a couple of guys, but Nick Velez, he's the one that runs Bastards Canteen, and so he's opened a new Bastards Canteen location, and it's going to have this performance space in it, and so we're going to have bands and comedy, and then that one night of the week it'll go towards Save the Brave, or some other charity, and so that's sort of the idea, was to get the ball rolling, have Matt bring some comedians on the show and just sort of have a great time talking about sports or whatever kind of fuckery we come up with, but also start to, just let it be okay to have a show in a comedy space, because it's so hard to do that now,
But you actually won't be there during the shows?
I might be. I mean, that's not my main job, but I mean, I would be there in some kind of, I probably have a blazer on or maybe a windbreaker, maybe, but yeah, I don't have a specific. Now, Matt would probably be there because he's, going to be booking guys like you and everything. Yeah, I would probably just come down as part of the Save the Brave crew and, maybe help take tickets or some shit like that.
Yeah.
And can you talk a bit more about what Save the Brave does?
In the audience? That's what I would do.
Yeah, tell us about Save the Brave.
Save the Brave, it's a charity that we do for veterans like me who have PTSD, and we try to get them. Look, the main thing we do is put people on a fishing boat and get them some fellowship. But we're trying to get to these guys before they're at the end of the rope, while they're on the rope and they're like, not doing as well as they could, and start to build fellowship around them so that whatever that thing is, whether it's a phone call or whether it's just interaction or working together on a problem, we provide this community so we continue to serve, but also have some fun, go out fishing or, in this case, comedy, and just lean on this problem of veterans dealing with, because there's so many of these things. Andrew, I don't know if you know how much, there are so many problems that veterans have that they compound, and they're like poor people problems. Like, I don't have $500 to do this, like parking tickets. Like, let's just get that zeroed out. Let's get you the $1,500 and just zero out those parking tickets, so you're no longer afraid to park somewhere and lose your car, which would be a significant trapdoor for me, somebody that leads to them putting a gun in their mouth,
Yeah.
So that's what we work on, is trying to find ways to help veterans. The main thing is fishing.
That's great. And is this something you participate in? Do you fish a lot?
I don't care about fishing at all.
Okay. Okay.
No, but I do the other things.
Not a fan. I hate
podcast,
fish. I hate boats.
Every episode we have Save the Brave represented on it. So I'm sort of like one of the media arms of what we do. And the show is not about Save the Brave, but Save the Brave is part of what we do in general,
Good. That's great. I mean, it's important to obviously have something you care about, something that gives back. For me, I try to spread awareness about survivors of suicide loss. That's a charity in San Diego, and that's tied into what you're talking about, right? Because we want to prevent people from dying by suicide, and we also want to help people who have known people or had loved ones who die by suicide,
right,
help their mental health, because as you know, their mental health is now affected. There's a study that says 151 people are affected when somebody dies by suicide. That's how many people are impacted, and they are now at greater risk of addiction, suicide, self-harm. And so it's important to have all these things set up in place to protect people's mental health, for sure.
Yeah. You get it. I mean, that's exactly right. And again, like I can't say this enough for folks who are listening. It's not about saving people at the end of the rope is very hard. It's dangerous because they are in a terrible, terrible position. You've got to try to do this beforehand. If you got someone who's struggling, it's better to call them before they even, before they're like, why didn't they reach out? Because they couldn't. All their focus was hanging onto that rope. They don't have a hand to reach out with anymore. Got to get them before that. Yes, you try to save folks who are in severe crisis, but call that friend of yours, call that person you haven't heard from, or the one person when they come to mind, call them and just check in with them. You don't got to ask them or chastise them or anything. Just check in on them and see how they're doing. Take them out to coffee or whatever.
I try to spread that message if I can as well, that prevention is so important. Prevention, right. Helping somebody who's struggling in the early phases get their life set up so that they have productive activities to do all day, so that they don't have a lot of idle time, so that they're not isolated, they're not alone, they're not bored. If they're not working, help them, helping them find a job, helping them have a job, helping them get involved in a charity that's meaningful to them, just like yours. I'm sure that people volunteer for that charity, right? And that probably gives them purpose. I agree. Getting early intervention is really important.
Yeah, it is. It is. And giving them purpose, okay, you've had some help. Now let's get you helping somebody else. How can we get this next person help, and the help that they need, not the help that you want to give. Like, where are they at, and it's a big problem, homelessness, all these things, they all kind of go together, where if we just kind of case manage people more effectively, I mean, it's horrible when you see these wrecked lives that are potentially salvageable if we could slow down long enough to figure out what kind of help they needed and then and help them get it.
It's tough. I've always thought that the addiction communities kind of have a good model for this stuff, right? AA, they have such a great model. I mean, they have there's meetings people can go to for free every single day, no matter where they are.
Right.
And for some people, that's their lifeline. And then that community basically make sure all those people are safe and healthy. And that's the motto of the community, right? We are going to help each other. We are going to make sure that we're not alone. If somebody in the community needs a job, we're going to try to find you one, because that's what we do. We treat each other like family. Yeah. And I wish there were more communities. I assume there's some of those communities for veterans, right? Where they can meet daily with groups and struggle with the same issues.
There are a lot of people working on this problem for sure, and it's such a pervasive problem that it's really hard to dial in the help where they need it to be. But you're right. We can all find that focus. And look, if someone's going to do charity, it doesn't have to be veterans, it doesn't have to be homelessness. It can be manatees in Florida. And I'm not making fun of that because right now there's a whole bunch of manatees dying and they don't know why. There's people that are desperate for that cause. So whatever your cause is, don't start a new cause. Get on the cause where it's already at. Don't just start a new charity. There's enough charities. Go work in one that already does what you care about too. That's it.
So Andrew, I'm curious. You're performing this weekend in Vegas. What's the setup? What's the vibe? How do you feel about getting out there again?
It's in a big ballroom rather than the comedy club, because a ballroom, as you can imagine, you can spread people out more.
Mm-hmm.
And there's all kinds of restrictions. There's a mask wearing mandate for everybody. The performers obviously can take off the mask when they're on stage. And for that reason, the front row is very far back. The crowd can only be released table by table, actually. So there's no crowding at the doors on the way out. So there's all kinds of strict guidelines. The performers have to have a negative COVID test before they show up in town. And that seems to be working when they're doing it this way. The crowds are generous because I think they're excited to go out. They're extra appreciative. We're going to have kind of a golden age of comedy. Matt, we gotta go on tour, man.
We're starting at Bastards and we're moving across the world. No, there's so much pent up demand.
We're never going to have this much goodwill. You know what I mean?
No.
We're going to have goodwill for the next 6 months, and then after that, the crowds are going to go back to like, yeah, you're all right, but
where's Bill Burr? I
want to go see Netflix. Yeah, I mean, we need to take advantage of these generous crowds right now.
What movies have you been on to show you're funny?
Right. So I think it's been really fun and really interesting to do comedy in this environment, and I'm kind of optimistic like everybody else. I'm hoping that there will come a time soon when we're living like we did in 2019, and I think comedy obviously is harder when you don't have that packed together laughter, but comedy's easier when you have audiences that are totally bought in. And they're showing up and they're like, I want to be here and I want to laugh. There's nothing like that in comedy.
Have you had time to work on a lot of new stuff too? Or is it hard to work stuff out when you can't go to, a place to work out live in front of the crowd?
I think every comedian needs to work it out, because most of what you write just isn't good enough. It's just not good enough, or it's not tight enough, and you have to try it and it doesn't really work, or it kind of works, and then you get it better. And did we lose Pete? That's it.
I'm still here.
Okay.
You can hear him. It's an improvement.
Pete's like a pre-COVID audience. It's mid-sentence, he's like, it's not good enough. I'm out of here. Later.
Click. Yeah.
You lost me.
I'm going to watch Ginny in Virginia or whatever it is.
Yeah. So, Matt, you had your own room in Orange County. You were probably working out a lot of material at that room, right? Because you were able to go up all the time.
Yeah, I didn't. It wasn't my room, but they were generous enough to give me time, and it's huge. It's your gym, and I've done some Zoom shows. I try to write. I think sketches are easier to write during COVID times.
Right.
But it's annoying. It's lame. There's no good substitute for working something out on stage, getting that interaction, and that's what's fun about. We have a mutual friend, Tim Lee. When this lockdown started, there was a Zoom show I was doing, and he wanted no part of it, and he mentioned he does comedy for the interaction, and I get that. I do some Zoom shows just because it's something to do, honestly. But
yeah,
I think Tim's right. Without that, it's so boring.
I've actually had fun on Zoom. I really have.
Okay.
I don't have a problem with Zoom shows. It's not a substitute for live shows, but
right. It's its own animal.
They're better than nothing. And I do find that I have fun and the crowds have fun. And I've seen comics on there be really funny.
They're hand jobs with the rubber glove. I think that's the analogy.
It's just it's one of those things where sometimes you find that you have jokes that are actually, they're well written enough. You can literally just say them in this conversation. And then sometimes you have jokes where you're like, oh no, this joke.
I have to perform. I don't want to do that.
Right. This joke just won't cut it in this format. This joke needs all the bells and whistles. It needs all the lights and the energy, and I need a stage, and I need to do my high kick,
Your toe taps. Did you perform last night? Was there a Thursday show?
Yeah.
What was that your first live show in a while?
No, not my first, but okay. I haven't done many. So,
But what was the crowd like in Vegas?
they were great. They were great because they seemed really happy to be there. They seemed very excited and very generous. And I'm assuming this is like a vacation that they probably haven't been taking many vacations. It's probably really exciting for them. The rates of the rooms are rock bottom all over town, as you know. So you're getting all kinds of people that are like, well, I'm just going to go because
Yeah,
it's $12. A Red Bull costs more than a room.
It does. It does.
Which is weird because it's irrelevant. That's not what you spend money on when you're here. It doesn't matter when you spend money in the room. You're still going to lose thousands of dollars when you're here, probably.
They got you here.
Right.
Hey, I got a question for you. So you've been on Kimmel, you've been on Letterman, and it's incredible to do those things, and they can define a career a lot of times. But where you're at now, what's the call that makes you go, holy shit, this just broke me to a new level? Like, what is that call? I mean, because there's not like a Carson level breakout anymore.
Pete Turner. Pete Turner.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. Well, thank you for that. I appreciate it. But for real, though, I mean, is it like, what is it? What would be like, I couldn't believe this happened to make you drop the phone?
I'm happy to do gigs, honestly. Like if you do a good show, Matt knows this, you do a good show where you have fun and you're just connecting and it works. And like, you're with people you want to be around, whether it be comics you're friends with or your friends are in the crowd, that like nothing beats that. I mean, that's just, it's hard to recreate that feeling, or if you have just one joke for some reason that you like, that's new.
They didn't hate it. Yes.
Works, yeah. Even if it never works again, even if it just works that one time, it's just kind of a thrill that you can't really recreate,
Yeah.
And then I got to ask this, just because people are so, we seem to be unwilling to find the limit of the ridiculousness that we have to deal with day to day. Pepe Le Pew is being canceled. Dr. Seuss has been canceled. We keep digging up dead people and canceling them. So the comfort level in a given audience is constantly going in this weird direction. But you guys are comedians. So what do you do?
Yeah.
I mean,
I think people forget in a live show, you can still actually, I don't necessarily, that's not really my style, but Matt is edgier than me. You can still actually push a lot of buttons in a live show. The comedy, live stand-up crowds are incredibly flexible. They're incredibly malleable. And I don't know if it's because they know stand-up is this sort of sacred place where it's like, here we go. Anything can happen. Or I don't know if it's because they're drinking and their defenses are down.
It's just alcohol.
Right. It doesn't really affect live stand-up shows much. I haven't found, not in the comedy that I've seen. And as far as those things being canceled, I mean, I didn't watch Pepe Le Pew anyway. Did you? I didn't read that.
I don't really care.
First I've heard of it in 25 years. I was like, what?
Right. I think those things are always going to be in a different category. Those are children's cartoons and children's books. We know that the standard for those are going to be way higher than stand-up comedy, especially, like I said, live stand-up. Recorded stand-up is going to be a little more scrutinized because it's recorded and people can dissect it and watch it over and over and complain about it. Live stand-up is still pretty wide open to say what you want to say, I think.
Thank God.
What do you think, Matt?
Yeah, no, Andrew hit the nail on the head. I mean, the people who come to shows, they're the customers. They're there to have a good time. I think a lot of the pushback is more on social media, or it's people who aren't the intended customer. And it's annoying, but when you're up there, whether you're watching it or performing it, I don't think it's really changed that much from now to maybe 20 years ago. It's more all the after. Like Andrew said, if you do a recorded show, it's going to be dissected more. If you do a sketch that's broadcast on TV, or a lot of people see it online, it'll get scrutinized more, and that can be annoying. But there still is some hollow ground at like bars or comedy clubs, or I think it's at its best when there's a speakeasy mentality to it.
Yeah, it still has kind of an underground counterculture feel to it, I think, stand up, and probably always will.
Yeah. One of my kids agrees.
Okay, is that time to go? Because your kids.
Oh no, I've been ignoring him for hours. It's fine.
Okay, all right.
No, we never wrap it up.
Yeah, I want to thank you guys for having me. I really appreciate it.
Well,
Yeah,
thank you. Yeah. So AndrewNorelli.com. Where else can they get information?
They can follow me on Instagram, which is Andrew Norelli, or it's under Tonight's Comedian. It's my handle. That's how they'll find out where I'm at. They can listen to my albums on Pandora or Spotify or any of the streaming apps if they just type in my name. And
do it. I commend you. Seriously, you will enjoy it. His stuff. He's handsome and one of the best comedians working today.
You are too kind. I like that as you casually sip your smoothie there. Yeah.
My kombucha.
Right. Is that acai in there? Is that acai?
Yeah, it's acai and CBD. So I'm immune to it.
Okay. No wonder you're so agreeable today. All right.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Thanks so
All right,
much for having me, guys.